Erik tenhag's time at Manchester United got off to a really good start after an initial hiccup, but since the Carabao Cup win, things have been slowly going downhill. From the 7-0 defeat to Liverpool, to the FA Cup final defeat, to scheduling 8 pre-season friendlies leading to players being lethargic at the start of the season, to overworking players in training sessions leading to more and more muscular injuries, and to his poor in-game management and beefing with his own players in general. And the recent comments he made after the Derby defeat about him never playing the style he played at Ajax due to different players, as well as the comments he made about Rashford and Rafael Varane, has just downright pissed me off. There's a lot to say about Erik ten Hag right now, so let's do just that. Hello everyone, my name is Simon, welcome back to the channel, and I don't know what to say because usually at this point I make an excuse, say it's been a while, make up an excuse for why I'm not here for like 4 months like your dad, but I was here last week and I'm here this week. This is unusual for me, so thank you for sticking around with me. And this is a topic that's very close to me because I'm a Manchester United supporter. This video will be a lot less segmented like my last videos. Instead it will just be all one segment and I will just rant about everything I can. So this is a lot less structured compared to my last videos because this is coming from here, I guess, not here. But hopefully you guys still enjoy it, and let me know if you agree with it or not. I really want to know if you are a United fan or if you are an outsider. I like to hear both perspectives. So yeah, thank you all for watching. If you like this, don't forget to like and subscribe, do all that good stuff, and let's get right into the video. As of right now, Manchester United sit 7th in the table, bottom of the Champions League group, and are completely out of the Carabao Cup. They've won a grand total of 8 games since the start of the season, and at least half of them were very fortunate wins. Let's count this up. Wolves at home, very fortunate to win. Sheffield United away, struggled to win. Burnley away, they were the better side. Brentford at home, very fortunate to win, although if you put the stats side by side, you could make a case that United deserved to win that one. And then lastly, Copenhagen at home, very fortunate to win that one. The cleanest win in the entire season came in the Carabao Cup against Crystal Palace's B team. Some of the blame can be put into injuries. Losing 3 of your first choice backline, Shaw, Lisandro and Wan-Bissaka, to medium to long-term injuries is not ideal. Moreover, losing the likes of Mount, Casemiro, Højlund, Malacia, Reguilon, Evans, Lindelof and even Varane at random points during the season doesn't help momentum at all. But there's only so much you can blame on injuries because every team has it at this point. Newcastle had a major one and they came to Old Trafford with largely their B/C team and play them out the park. The squad consists of multiple current and former internationals, and the team shouldn't burst into flames when a certain amount of them are out. But here we are. So when you see something like this happen, there are 2 questions that I would ask, and one of them is, what do we do in training sessions? And number 2 is, what the f do we do in preseason? Well, for the second question, there's a very good answer for it. The club scheduled not 4, not 5, but 8 preseason friendlies. 8. Yeah, this number. This is unheard of. Nobody's done it before, and for good reason. You play a certain amount of games, but the rest is training time. You get your physicals back up to speed, you do some tactical work. You don't just keep playing games. And especially not in America, where you need to go by air just to get from one state to another. So you're spending a lot of time in air travel and preparing tactical work for the matches you're going to play, and very little work is being done on the physicals, which is where most of your focus should be. That's one part of the questions answered. The other one regarding training sessions, there is nothing confirmed yet, but according to some sources, in our training sessions in weeks where we have 3 games, usually what teams would do is they would have less physical work and more tactical work. Apparently Ten Hag's doing the exact opposite. There's a lot more physical work and a lot less tactical work. Compare that to someone like Pep Guardiola, who's actually come out and in the press conference and admitted that they do more tactical work in weeks like that. It's a complete contrast, and you can kind of see why. Manchester City do not have an injury crisis right now, while Manchester United have about an entire 11 worth of players out. This can be entirely pinned on the manager and the coaching staff, but that's not the only thing that can be pinned on Ten Hag. We're just getting started. Because with the players he has, he's not giving himself the best chance to win games. And this is where my second issue with Ten Hag comes in. Playing his best players in secondary roles. So, I've looked back the last 17 months since he's came in, every single competitive game, and I've counted the amount of times Bruno Fernandes has been shifted out wide from his favorite number 10 position. You want to guess the amount of times he's been done that? Take a guess. Yeah, the answer's wrong, it's 37.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. The correct answer was in fact 37.
So let me get this straight. A manager has willingly shifted his best player, his best number 10, one of the best creators in world football, out wide
On 37 different occasions.
Granted, only 13 of them were starts, but a lot of them involve him being put out wide for a significant portion due to subs. Sometimes when Anthony gets subbed off, he usually gets moved out wide. And this doesn't include the one time he was moved to centre back. And the same concept applies to Rashi playing up top or wide right. These are your two best attackers in the squad by a long shot, and any other manager would find a way to play them in their preferred roles and fill the rest of the attack with inferior attackers. But at Manchester United, the opposite's happening, where both of them are being shifted to accommodate inferior players, namely Garnacho in Rashford's case and McTominay and Eriksen in Bruno Fernandes' case. Speaking of McTominay and Eriksen, let's move on to my other issue, team selection. On the theme of guessing, let's play another game. Want to take a guess at how many times McTominay started since the previous international break? 5. And the only one he sat out was the Carabao Cup. And all of this is because he scored goals against Brentford. So yes, a Manchester United manager is starting McTominay in deep midfield because he scored goals in one game. The same concept can be applied to Christian Eriksen, who had a very good half against Copenhagen when he came on and was thrown straight into the Manchester derby when he could not win a duel to save his life. This guy is on life support, he can barely run, and Ten Hag threw him into midfield to go duel Rodri and John Stones. This guy's a sadist, I tell ya. The worst part about this is the club and the management pushed for Mount as the marquee midfield signing in the summer for these exact situations to play instead of Eriksen. And here we are, still playing Eriksen despite Mount being fit this entire time. Usually when a manager does this, it signifies pressure, playing players that had a good half or a good period of play in the hopes that they can continue that form and give you the best chance of staying in a job and the best chance of winning, rather than sticking to your principles and original game plan. But the fact that he's also inconsistent on different players with this is a fault in his own. For example, Anthony hasn't had a good game in... When was the last time he had a good game? But the manager still picks him instead of Pellistri, who's had a good impact every time he's come on. He's thrown Pellistri for one game against Bayern Munich where he did not do so well, and instead of giving him a run of games where he could build momentum, he dropped him onto the bench the very next game. The same concept applies with Maguire early in the year. Maguire, after a huge centre-back injury crisis, came in against Crystal Palace, did well, and the very next game dropped immediately for Lindelof, despite the latter having a rough period of form, and it took another injury for Maguire to fully come in and win that spot over. This weird treatment and favoritism with certain players leads me to my other issue with Ten Hag: player management. The Sancho saga opened a can of worms that will never be closed again. If you've been living under a rock, let me fill you in on the details. After the second match day, Erik said in a press conference that Sancho wasn't being selected because his training was not up to standard. Sancho then followed it up immediately with this statement, saying how to not believe everything we're reading and how he's been treated as a scapegoat. Since then, Sancho's been demoted to the under-18s and basically isolated from the entire squad. To this day, it's still the same situation, and both sides are refusing to call truce on the situation. With situations like these, from past experience, I can safely say there is two sides to this story. We've heard the manager's side, and we still haven't heard the player's side. The player isn't faultless, don't get me wrong, but the manager isn't either. And this is further backed up by the fact that he's now fallen out with Raphael Varane after the Frenchman was dropped for Johnny Evans for tactical reasons in the derby, despite the latter being fit. Like, no disrespect to Johnny Evans, but what? What tactical? I don't get it, man. His zero filter method in the press conferences don't work either, with him saying Rashford celebrating his birthday was unacceptable, which just fuels the media to keep on going and it could have just been kept a private issue, which is the norm with these situations. Speaking of press conferences, let's get on to another thing he said right after the City game. Geez, my segues have been on point today. After the Derby defeat to City, Ten Hag was asked in a post-match press conference if he would ever implement the same style he did at Ajax at Manchester United. And his answer was, to quote, "Never. We will never play that football because those were different players." Which I kind of get. You have to adapt to your players' strengths and weaknesses, and you cannot play the exact same style. But at the exact same time, what do you think the club brought you in for, mate? To play Route 1 football, is it? We could have just hired Sam Allardyce. Fact of the matter is, he was brought in to implement his style of play, his philosophies and his values that he instilled into the Ajax team, into the current United team, given 400 million euros and free reign to sign anybody he wants to fit into that style. Which is where I think the problem is. Giving a manager free reign over transfers is never a good thing, especially when you employ people specifically for the recruitment team. He won't have the statistical evidence and the scouting reports that the recruitment team does, and as a result, will only go for players that he knows, which is a very ineffective way of going about in the transfer market. Let's say instead of signing Casemiro and Antony for the fees and the wages that they did, they could have gone for, say, a Declan Rice or a Berardi or an Olise as replacements, and that will be a much better use of money. My point is, signing just players the managers know is a very bad way to go about in the transfer market, financially, tactically, and age profile wise. And the worst part about it all is I specifically remember Ten Hag asking for free control over transfers. I don't know who's worse in that situation, honestly. Murta for giving him that reign, or Ten Hag for thinking he can actually do it. From talents outside to talents within, we move on to my final point of the video, which is his complete lack of trust in the academy, which is just very, very jarring. Even though most of them aren't the best in class, they can be used to plug in gaps within the squad instead of buying backups from outside, and that would, one, help with homegrown quotas, and two, they will be more than willing to sit as backups. They came through the system. They are born and bred within the club. They're more than willing to play for Manchester United. For instance, keeping James Garner instead of loaning in Marcel Sabitzer halfway through deadline day. Keeping Anthony Elanga, an athletic freak with decent technical flaws, and trying to develop him into a very good winger instead of selling him up for cheap and leaving the team one attacker short. Selling Matej Kovar and bringing in Alte Bayenda, even though you could have just asked the latter to play a backup keeper role who is more than fit to do the job. Loaning out both Alvaro Fernandez and Brandon Williams amidst a fullback injury crisis, and bringing in Region, another injury-prone fullback, on loan. I could go on, but my point still stands. Outside of the main 15, he does not know how to build a squad, and that's hindering him, the team, and us as watchers and fans. And that's all my issues with Erik ten Hag and what he's been doing wrong this time. But now what? Where do we go from here? A lot of my heart and head wants Ten Hag gone. It's been like that for some time. I don't really know who I want in next. It's just that Ten Hag, I'm not really feeling Ten Hag anymore. And it's more than just the results and the tactics for me. There's a few reasons on this. The first is he's lost the dressing room, or at least a good few prominent members of it. And from past experience and from looking at other teams, that's a very hard hill to climb up from. Both Jose Mourinho and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer suffered from that same issue. They lost the dressing rooms and they could not get the players to play for them, and they ended up getting sacked, and Ten Hag might have the same fate. And number two, which is almost a deal breaker for me, he's abandoned his principles completely. I would rather see somebody stick to his own principles and values, play the way that he wants to, and try to get his results that way, rather than trying to delay the inevitable and play an 11 that can just about get the results. In the case of both Jose Mourinho and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, even though the going gets tough, they never abandon what they believed in. You could argue about their beliefs in general and what they were trying to do, but they never swayed from it. Ten Hag has. And that's a bit of a deal breaker for me. But there's a little bit within me, somewhere there, that wants Erik ten Hag to turn this around. I remember what he did in 2022, in the early bits of 2023, the football he got us playing, the results he was getting at times, and I really want him to rediscover that magic and achieve those heights again. But I also remember a quote that he said in his very first press conference as Manchester United manager. that eras come to an end. And I do believe we are very nearly approaching the end of the Erik-ten-hag era. And that's it for the video. Hope you enjoyed it. And I did not mean for the very last end of the video to get as heavy as it did. I was staring into the camera, I was not blinking, and it looked like I was gonna cry, even though I wasn't even gonna cry at all. I did enjoy making this video. This video had a much looser script compared to the other ones because a lot of the stuff I just said as it is instead of trying to script it perfectly. So hope you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments about what you think about Erik-ten-hag and his time at Manchester United. Do you think he's responsible for all the things I said, or do you think there's something more to it? Do let me know in the comments down below, and if you do enjoy it, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, turn on the post notifications, all that good stuff. Follow me on my socials, and yeah, until next week. Before I say see ya, next week could be my last video for a while because my internship's starting in 2 weeks. I'm getting my first paycheck, yay me. Other than that, you all take care, and I'll see you next week. Until then, see ya.